we today don't really celebrate the military victory. We celebrate it in terms of just mentioning it in our prayer book. But the whole ceremony that we have on Hanukkah is really celebrating light. Both Hanukkah and Christmas share that idea of the light. Same in the church. I came up with a term after speaking with Don this week. I call it constructive theology. I don't know if anybody else actually, if you ever heard that before. I don't know, maybe somebody else came up with that too. But constructive theology is something that the church does and did, and the Jewish rabbis did also during the time of the Talmud and been doing. What it means is to take an event, which I don't necessarily think everything is metaphorical. I don't see here we may disagree a little bit. I don't see, and when I asked Don if he wanted a real glass of water or a metaphorical one, I was actually also making a point there. I don't believe that everything is metaphorical. Actually, the whole challenge is to take the scripture and try to understand what we need to take metaphorically and what we need to take actually literally. So, but the constructive theology is to take an event and use it for theological purposes. So, for example, we know, and I don't think the church will never say that Jesus was born on December 25th, right? But for the purpose of the Catholic theology, or the Christian theology, they placed it there. That's where they're holding the birthday. My mother, for example, they came from, my parents came from Yemen, and they were children when they walked through the desert to get to Israel. And at that time, they actually didn't register women. So my mother doesn't have a birthday. She doesn't know her birthday. She knows the year, but she doesn't know the exact date. And her name is Ora, which means light in Hebrew. So her mother said, "Oh, you were born around Hanukkah." So she thought, okay. But then she spoke to her years later, and she said, "No, it was because of the summer," or something like that. So two totally confusing dates that had light in them. So she really doesn't know when her birthday is. So symbolically, she celebrates it on Mother's Day. So that's really that's the idea. So, but the point is that event happened historically at a certain point. But for the purpose of the theological purpose, the church and the rabbis placed it in a different time. So we celebrate Hanukkah always on the 25th of Kislev. There's the Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev. It's really the third month after the high holidays, which we'll talk about in a minute. But when we celebrate it, is not necessarily when it happened, and the different interpretation of when exactly it happened, and when they rededicated the temple, and when they even came up with the idea of celebrating Hanukkah. That happened a century later. So, it's not something that we know for sure that on that day they dedicated or rededicated the temple.